Hello everyone! Today I'm going to be going in depth about everything there is to distracting in Dandy's world, from the tunes to the strategies. This is a totally original video idea that's never been done before. There will be timestamps in the description for different segments of the video, but honestly everything kind of blends together, so I would recommend watching the whole video in full if you want to get everything absorbed. But yeah, I'll put the timestamps anyway. First, let's go over what tunes you usually want to be distracting with. You're going to want to be using a tune with 4 to 5 stars of movement speed. The tunes you're going to want to use are Goob, Louie, Cole, Flutter, Sprout, Tisha, Razzle, and Pebble. Pebble and Razzle have the highest base stat of 5 stars in the game, but do take into consideration that at the time of filming this, Louie is faster than Pebble and Razzle when he's at 1 heart. The tunes I'm going to focus the most on are Pebble and Goob, simply because these are the tunes that I use the most, personally. Don't worry though, most of what goes for Goob can go for all 4-star speed distractors, besides the fact that he has the lowest stealth of them all. As for what trinkets you're going to want to use, Dog Push and Speedy Shoes are the go-to best bet for distractors, since it maximizes your walk speed at an extra 15% boost. I don't know what's up with public lobbies Goob players, but do not take any pages from their books. Please just stick to the basic trinkets. If you're with a friend who you're confident distracting with, you can also alternate floors and have dog plush and ribbon spool or clown horn respective to both of you. This works regardless if you're playing a 4 or 5-star speeder. Genuinely though, if you want to play a distractor, don't use anything except the basic trinkets. Second, and I feel like this is something not a lot of people talk about, is ping. Your ping matters a lot more than you think it does. When you have higher ping, hitboxes can seem wonky, and sprint takes longer to take effect. Here's a clip of me sprinting in my own region with the lowest ping I can achieve. Then here's a clip of me sprinting in a server where it's not in my region. One after the other, it doesn't look like much of a difference, but side by side slowed down here, you can see the clip of me sprinting in my own region takes less time to actually make me run. Also, when you're in your own region, you can pull off stunts like this, but when you're not, things like this will happen. Yeah. Another thing that goes hand in hand with ping is understanding hitboxes. Sometimes, when your ping isn't great, hitboxes can seem like they're really big for no reason. Rather than that being the case, the real issue is that your ping, which if you didn't already know, determines the round trip time for messages sent between devices. Basically, it is how long your computer takes to register what's going on in the game. Since your ping is high, it means that your computer is taking a longer amount of time to register and display what's happening than others might be. So even if on your screen it looks like the twisted is really far away, on someone else's screen it might look like you just got hit like normal. Certain twisteds aside from commons require certain strategies or methods to distract, namely the grabbers and all 5 of the non-event main character tunes. I'll give a short description of strategies for each, since some are easier than others. We'll go from easiest to most challenging. Main character twisteds you can treat like commons are Astro and Shelly. Their debuffs don't really affect you as long as all of the other twisteds you're distracting are commons. This more so goes for Astro than Shelly though, since Shelly just makes extraction speed slower. I honestly think Toodles is more of a threat than Shelly simply because she's much easier to accidentally lose and get hit by. Astro's debuff, Tired, makes your stamina regen slower than it usually does. Sprout is also typically very easy to distract, so long as you have a nice open area to kite him in, and no one in your way bothering you. Next, I want to give a bit more time talking about the Craft siblings, aka Scraps and Goob. Goob is actually more of a threat than Scraps, but all in all, they're mostly the same. While they're both the same speed as Shrimpo, their abilities can sometimes make it hard to kite them, especially with other twisteds on your tail. Scraps' ability is that she can whip her tail at you and take 1 heart's worth of damage, and Goob is reminiscent to that where he can pull tunes towards him taking 1 heart's worth of damage from them. Again, while they are both the same speed, Goob is more of a threat because he has a higher attention span and lower cooldown. Plus when he pulls you, it immobilizes you for a second, leaving you vulnerable to other twisteds getting you. For the Craft siblings, I recommend keeping a count in your head of roughly when they're going to try and grab you. Also keep an eye out for visual cues, because they will do a short animation before attempting to grab you. Keep in mind, if their LOS is even slightly broken, they will usually fail to grab you, as you can see here in the background. Gigi is another grabber tune that is less deadly than Scraps or Goob. Her ability is that she will attempt to steal items out of your inventory by grabbing them from a distance. Usually you can distract her like you would for any other grabber, but since she's faster than common Twisted, sometimes you might just want to have a backup distractor take her alone. Another Twisted you want to take note of when he's on the floor is Glisten. When you get onto a floor with Glisten, you'll get a dialogue cue letting you know. If kept under wraps, Glisten can be an easily avoidable threat to your team, aside from Panic Mode. During Panic Mode, Glisten's chase speed is the exact same as Pebble and Razzle's run speed when they have speedy shoes on. This means you're not going to be able to keep him on you for very long if encountered during Panic Mode, and you should get to the elevator as fast as you can in the event of Glisten chasing you while Panic Mode is active. Honestly, in my opinion, I think Glisten is actually the hardest Twisted in the game to kite, just because his hitbox is very tiny and he's very fast. So looping him around an island is not as effective as it is for Pebble, but I will explain more about Pebble later. Now, arguably the two most difficult Twisteds to distract in the game, V and Pebble. While it's based on opinion who's actually more difficult, both require careful distracting and have to be handled in a certain manner. We'll talk about V first, since she is often less intimidating to newer distractors than Pebble is. V has multiple abilities that make her a life-threatening Twisted to deal with. Upon spotting you, V will deliver 2 of her abilities at once, one pop-up ad and the slow 2 debuff. Every 45 seconds, and upon arrival to a floor with her in it, V will send up 3 pop-up ads to your screen. While these provide no direct threat, they obstruct your view and provide the threat of not being able to fully take in your surroundings. Her second ability is that she delivers a slowness 2 debuff, which reduces your movement speed by 25%, meaning that no matter what distractor you're playing, you will have to sprint to not get hit by her. This is manageable when distracting just V alone or with common Twisteds, but adding in other mains or grabbers can quickly make things tricky. Now, for the moment you've all been waiting for, distracting Twisted Pebble. Distracting Twisted Pebble is scary at first, but it all really comes down to a science. All you're going to want to do is make sure that you only have Pebble on you, and find an island to loop him around. Due to his large hitbox, it takes Pebble longer to wrap around a corner than it does for a distractor to, so only when using an island you can actually outwalk Pebble. Due to Pebble's extremely far line of sight, you're going to want to be on an island out of the way of people walking by and taking Pebble off of you. Even if someone has higher stealth than you, due to the manner that Pebble is distracted, they're still going to end up taking aggro of Pebble. Twisted like Pebble and V are why it's important to have a backup distractor on your team that you can rely on and communicate with them when you need them to take Twisteds out of your way. Going along with having a backup distractor, it's good to have a means of communication with your team, whether it be a voice chat or the Roblox in-game chat. I definitely recommend voice chat if you want to get to higher floors, but I am aware that not everyone is able to use voice chat. Always make sure that it's clear with your team what to do when difficult combos arise, such as multiple main characters or grabber Twisteds. In Dandy's World, there are a lot of abbreviations for different terms. I'm not going to go over every single one. I'm just going to put a little list on screen right now for the most common ones that you'll see. Next, I want to talk about items. Certain items are more useful to distractors than others. Usually as a distractor, you're going to want to have 1 to 2 heals with you at all times. Even if you're the best distractor in the whole world, you will get hit. Accidents happen, and lag happens. It's also good to have a healer on your team so you can save your heals for dire emergencies. Items you should look for are heals, movement speed items, and if you're a backup, you can also look for escape items to help pass Twisteds to the main distractor. I want to touch a bit on items I think are actually often overlooked in these categories. Cans of pop, chocolate, stealth candies, and speed candies are all 4 items I use extremely often as a distractor, even though they're all common items. Chocolate and cans of pop are both great to give you a little stamina boost if you just see one on the ground you're able to grab. Chocolate also boosts your walk speed by 10%, so you can use that to get some distance between you and the Twisteds you're distracting. Stealth candies are also really useful for backup distractors to eat when they're passing Twisteds to the main distractor, and are handy to keep on you if you just see one laying around. Speed candies are pretty self-explanatory, but they just boost your movement speed by 25% overall and are helpful for getting away or regenerating stamina. Next, I want to talk about which maps are best for distracting and which are the worst, and where you should try to stay when distracting. In my opinion, the best maps are Astro's Room, the Projector Room, Rainbow Room 6, depending on where the elevator spawns, Rainbow Room 7, I think it's called, Warehouse 1 and 2, and the Holiday map, although that map went away with the Christmas event. On the contrary, the worst maps by far have to be Shelly's Room and Warehouse 3. They're all really cramped, and you have to often take tight corners or distract in common or small areas, making things dangerous for your team. Speaking of making things dangerous for your team, there are certain spots on a floor you should try to avoid distracting at when possible. Places like by the active elevator, unfinished machines, and common areas such as the middle of the map or passageways are not the best place for distracting. Ideally, you want to try and stay at the fake elevator or off to the side where no one is going to interrupt your flow. Sometimes you have to make bad spots work when there's bad twisted combos, such as Pebble and V together. You want to make sure that if there has to be 2 distractor spots, you're not going to end up running into the other distractor. This is why good communication is key to being a good distractor. Another thing you'll hear often as a distractor is the term aggro, or LOS. Aggro means aggression, which is basically who the twisted will be targeting, and LOS means line of sight, which is how close you can get to a twisted before it sees you. Oftentimes, aggro of a twisted will shift onto someone you don't want it to be on, such as an extractor or your backup distractor. In those cases, it's usually best to use your speak ability to quickly grab them back, but there is ways to get them back without doing that. Usually what you want to do is break the twisted's line of sight from your backup and put yourself in between them and the twisted so the twisted chooses you instead. There's also a second technique I like to call peeling, where you go up next to someone and make the twisted peel off of them and onto you. It's sort of tricky, but once you get the hang of it, it becomes kind of easy. You'll see in the background that it's very effective for if you want to save your speak for a dire circumstance. Keep in mind, if someone's stealth stat is less than 3, you're not going to be able to break line of sight or peel twisted off of them as Pebble or any distractor except for Goob. So you want to have your bark ready or an air horn, unless they can quickly hide behind something. So we've covered tunes, trinkets, communications, abbreviations, strategies, ping and lag, maps, spots, and twisteds. The last thing I want to cover is my personal advice for what I like to do when I distract. Me personally, I like to get a playlist that I like going and just run around in circles when it's commons or an easy floor. For more tricky combos, I turn down my music and communicate with my team, but I try not to think too much about it, because in the end, it's pretty easy to distract any combo, as long as you're calm and collected. I hope this video helps you to understand distracting more as a whole. I'll answer any questions in the comments. See you next time.